Cool. Hey guys, how are you? This is something that's a little bit unorthodox for me, but I've been building in public for the last year. So I thought I don't have any investors. I am my own investor, and basically my audience is my investors. So I'm gonna just be going through everything I've done in the last year, and kind of make it all public and walking you through some of my thoughts, feelings, lessons learned, basically on the journey. So just a little bit of a background if you don't know me. My name is Kevin Jockelson, and basically, I'm going to be walking through this kind of year that I took off to build businesses in public. So the agenda is a bit of a background behind that. Some of the goals that I set for myself, what I hit, what I missed, some of the lessons learned along the way, which is probably the most interesting part for some, indie hackers or entrepreneurs out there. So hopefully stick through it because I think there's some interesting stuff, but you'll want to focus on that. And then as well, people have been asking me what's next for me. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. So let's keep going. So bit about bit of background behind the Bootstrap Sabbatical. So last year, which is 2021, I quit my job. I'd been 5 years at a startup, um, built that kind of from a baby to teenager. And even though I was employee number two, I basically knew I'd never be the kind of owner of the company. I was just a doting uncle. So it's time to move on. And so I decided that I didn't have an idea for the kind of the next Facebook. So instead, I decided I'd build a curriculum that encouraged me to build businesses very quickly until I found my next big thing. So I wrote up this curriculum. I had a bunch of goals with that, and I decided I'd commit to that publicly and build in public to keep myself accountable. And that's why I'm doing this. I don't have investors, so this is my yearly review, my annual investor update, and you guys as my audience are basically my investors. So let's go through some of the goals. The goals were to basically complete a course on no code or low code by middle of the year. The next thing was to launch a new business every 2 months of 2021. And then publicly show revenue with the goal of hitting 100,000 or 10,000 monthly recurring revenue by the end of the year of 2021. And then partner on a project with someone I've never worked with before by the end of the year. Publish 25 pieces of writing as a means of education by March 31. And then finally, it was to sell or buy a micro SaaS company by the end of the Bootstrap Sabbatical, which was the end of March. So all these goals basically came together with this single goal of building an umbrella organization that owns multiple businesses that are run by people other than myself. I didn't expect to kind of get this done in a year, but that's kind of my grand vision for the next 5 years. So what goals did I meet? Let's go through them. So firstly, I had to complete a no-code course by middle of the year. And I did do this. So I took on a program called 100 Days of No Code. This is mostly a self-guided no code course where you can pick up different no code tools and build the things that you want to build. It fitted really well with building in public because you have to tweet daily about what you're working on. They also have a really strong, really friendly, encouraging community, mostly thanks to the founder, Max Hanning. So shout out to Max. After that, the next one was to launch a business every 2 months of 2021. So this was kind of the real grunt work of the year. So I did actually meet this goal. There were 8 months left in the year, so I had to launch 4 businesses. So the 4 businesses that I launched were the Tech Report, which is a newsletter that basically takes all of the Australian, New Zealand, and global tech news and kind of summarizes it and send it daily. It's fully automated. And then I built Kidcasso, which takes kids' drawings and turns them into framed masterpieces. The next one was the Noble Sage Liquor Company, which does barrel-aged cocktails. And then the last one was Opsize, which is basically a commercialization of all my requests to do consulting. Basically, we do one thing and we do one thing well, and that's basically scaling operations and startups. I also then launched 2 additional products as well. So they were both under the Noble Sage Liquor Company. That was the Elusive Bass, which is a whiskey-based cocktail, and Raven's Espresso, which is like a coffee espresso martini made with rum. So the next one was to partner on a project with someone I've never worked with before by the end of the year. So I did this basically with Noble Sage Liquor Company with Ilan. So Ilan is my best mate. We've been friends for 25 years, but that felt a little bit too easy. So when it came down to doing another drink, we decided that we would try find an unbelievable coffee roaster, and we partnered with Timely Coffees based out of Perth. What was really cool about this is I think we really met like once or twice over video, and other than that, it was just sending product across the country. They're based in Perth, so we're literally shipping across the continent, until we worked out what we wanted. And this was based on a simple mantra I'd said to them, like, let's just gain the most mutual maximum upside with a minimum collective input. So we weren't tied down or locked in a long-term contract with them. We could move on to different roasters if we wanted. So I thought it was a really successful partnership, and we're still using Timely Coffees today with Ravens Espresso. So next up, what goals did I miss? So, published 25 pieces of writing as a means of education by March 31, 2022. Um, so, what I can say, another lesson learned is writing is really, I'm a perfectionist, so writing is really tough and takes a lot of time. I'm not a content creator. Even though I'm pushing things out like this, it's not my full time thing. I don't want to be a writer. I enjoy writing, but it does take a lot of time. So the two pieces I did push out did actually generate a lot of SEO, a lot of people coming to my site. So that's cool. But ultimately, I'm not too fussed about missing this goal because the goal was to build businesses, not to become a writer. I did tweet regularly with 100 days of no code and just some of my ups and downs and lessons learned. And I got some virality of that. So, one example was, big time angel investor Jason Calacanis from This Week in Startups retweeted one of my lessons that I learned, and that got about 50,000 engagements. So that's pretty cool. Um, Otherwise, buy or sell a micro SaaS company by March 31st, 31, 2022. So I like to build with the end in mind. And so being involved to kind of the M&A process of buying or selling a startup seemed really interesting to me. The interesting thing about this one is I actually could have hit this goal. So I did have some people reach out to me about some of my businesses. One of them was the Tech Report. And I had, some people interested in acquiring that. Actually, quite embarrassed. I actually don't know if I got back to this request, but there's a few questions, and I don't think I was ready to sell any of my businesses. I feel like I could grow them further and then exit with with more effort in better valuation. So I could have met that. Basically, decided not to. Now here's the most daunting one. People thought it was kind of the push out of business every 2 months, but for me. Publicly show revenue with the goal of hitting 100,000 or 10,000 monthly recurring revenue by December 31. This one I slept on for a while before I put out there, and I decided if it didn't scare me, it wasn't audacious enough. So this is what I committed to. For those that don't know, 10,000 MRR is monthly recurring revenue. So it's a business that has a subscription that, if you times that by 12 is about 120,000. But with software businesses, they kind of grow exponentially. So how did I go with this? Before I get in, I just wanted to talk about this goal because it was my most important, I think. And basically, I didn't want to get in. I wrote a few things in my thesis about this goal. And so one of them was to not resort to old startup habits, including the failure to charge customers and the pursuit of users and other growth vanity metrics, which you see a lot of companies do. There's been some kind of fantastic failures of startups because they're focusing on wrong things. So that was, to keep myself accountable there, as well as, the most basic thing in a business is in order to measure value, one must capture it through charging. So you're actually providing value. The next one is the goal is to ensure I am aligned and reminded that for an early stage venture, the growth of revenue is the noblest of all growths. So how did I go? So basically, at the end of it, I've hit close to $30,000, which I'm pretty happy with. Reminds me a little bit about this graph from Jack Butcher, where basically, you keep going at it, and every day, you kind of feel a little bit like a failure. Are you doing the right thing? And all those kind of failure data points are basically just points towards success. So you've just got to keep going, and then eventually, it compounds. And I feel like that's a lesson I've learned from this year, that everything in life compounds. You just have to keep moving to make that happen. So I thought I would kind of show each of my launches to kind of show how the revenue appeared. This is probably my favorite chart on the presentation, and you can just see how long it took. It took about 4 months to hit my first $1,000, and now I'm kind of hitting $1,000 in the bank account probably every 10 days. And I'm hoping that can kind of like hockey stick up, but we'll see how we go. And I'll talk a little bit about what I'm focusing on next. So some other progress data points. Every week I did kind of update my stats. So I'll quickly show you some of these because they're quite interesting. So Twitter followers grew that to 849. Growing Twitter is actually really hard. I give it to people who have a lot. As I said, I'm not a content creator. I'm not aiming to grow it, but this is a bit of a vanity metric, but not so much because some people are interested to see what I'm doing. And you can see on another chart, how much did it actually grow? I started with a baseline. So, I added about 200 and something followers. And this just kind of shows that people are interested in what I'm doing. So that's, nice little pat on the back. This one is, I don't look at this as a vanity metric. This is actually my email subscribers. I'd never done something like this, growing an email list. I have a personal email list. As well as something like the tech report is an email newsletter. So each one of these people are customers. So this is kind of across all my businesses, my personal email list at kevjock.com, as well as the tech report, as well as some of my other businesses. And I just want to keep growing this. I want to double down on email marketing in 2022. I think I underutilize it and I want to learn more. If you have advice on it, reach out. Let's jump into probably the most important thing, some of the lessons I learned from this year. So the main one for me was kind of just having a plan. This is my Bootstrap Sabbatical showing on the screen. It took a lot of time to work on it. But one thing I can say is people who just took a year off and didn't have a plan, I feel like they didn't, from the ones I've spoken to, haven't kind of executed to the level I have. In saying that, I think I could have done more. And that kind of jumps into kind of building in public. I could have done more to kind of build in public. I'll talk about that lesson a bit more. But having a plan meant that I was kind of held myself accountable to something that I'd committed to. And that jumps onto this one. So the next one is hold yourself accountable to stackable daily and weekly habits. So stackable habits is from Atomic Habits. It's a great book. Basically, just having a habit and putting one on top of the other. So it's quite seamless doing things in a row. So every Monday without fail, I basically did a planning day and I updated my progress stats, looked at, the week before and updated publicly. I then also, as part of that, which was a weekly routine, I basically did a sprint retrospective. So that was basically looking at my week before and reviewing that. I track all my time. So I'd look at where was I spending my time? Was I putting in the right energy into the right things? I would write down my wins and losses. As an entrepreneur, we often, fail to recognize those things. So I took the time to recognize some of my wins, where I could have done better. And then I would actually rate my week. How good was this week out of 10? And then I'd write some feedback. Maybe it's I'm getting distracted on this, or looking back at the stats, this isn't actually performing. So why am I spending my time doing this? Um, After that, I would then plan my next sprint. So I would move all my tickets that were still open that I wanted to work on to the next week. I would have one major goal for that week. That was kind of like if I met that goal, I should be happy with it. And then all my other goals under each business, I would kind of allocate. I would basically print those goals and then I would stick it on the wall in front of me. So, this week I can see I have a update on the year, charts, lessons, and then do a video. So this is one of the things for this week that I'm working on. Next thing was kind of daily. So every day I committed to one big thing that I wanted to work on. I would do kind of been doing meditating for about 2 years, 3 years now. And I kind of think about some of the mental clutter in my mind that might be taking up some of my mental energy. And if there's something that's really big that's holding me down, I do try clear that. And then I plan my whole day on paper. So I have a to-do list, write that down, and then I allocate that to a time tracker. And I kind of gamify my day by working through this time tracker. So this is another one. Put aside a lump sum of money and spend it. If you're going to take a year off, separate your personal life from your business. Put some money in there, and know that if you're spending it wisely, you should be spending that money. This has kind of changed a bit in the last few months as I get towards the end of my sabbatical, and it's a lot easier, say, spending the money that's coming into Noble Sage, where we are generating some cash flow. It's easier to spend that on marketing and advertising because it's there. But with the new business, if you haven't allocated a budget, you kind of spend time thinking about whether you should spend that money or not. And that makes decision making harder, where you should just go, this makes sense, I have this money, I'm going to spend it, and you're not wasting time thinking about whether you should take money out of your own bank account for it. The next one is put yourself out there a lot. So obviously, something like this is public. I put my curriculum out there publicly. I say tweeted every day with 100 days of no code. But I still think I could have done more or attracted a bigger audience if I did even more to put myself out there. Um, so, I think you should do that. You shouldn't be afraid to put yourself out there. People don't kind of hold on to the fails, they hold on to some of the successes. So I probably, I did, if you're doing the work, I think you should be, talking about it. If you're talking about doing the work, but you're not doing the work, you probably shouldn't be doing it. But every week I updated my progress. I was on my site, but I probably could have tweeted about that, put that on LinkedIn, and then people could have seen, wow, this guy every week without fail is doing this and he's working hard. And this is interesting. So I'm going to follow this. And towards the end of it, I found this quote by Helen Keller, which is, avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful caught as often as the bold. So be bold, be relentless, put yourself out there, and I think success will come to you. Um, Otherwise, this is just one that I learned about some of the businesses that were different to me. So the grass isn't always greener. As a software entrepreneur, mostly working in tech, I think a lot of software people look at something like D2C, direct to consumer, like physical products, and they go, oh, that's easy. You just basically build this product once, and then you become a marketing machine, and you basically just have to market this product and get it out there. Whereas, in tech, you're constantly iterating on software. It's really not that simple. It's not the same. It's not easier. It's just a different beast. So with something like Noble Sage, I like to think we stress tested every aspect of that business, especially with COVID. We had different suppliers sell out, go bankrupt. I think actually one of our suppliers might have passed away from COVID. And so we had to basically constantly find new suppliers for our product and keep it the same. So it's one thing building software and kind of maintaining that software and iterating on it, but when you create a physical product, it has to be perfect from the get-go, and then you have to maintain that level of quality. So with COVID, that was quite a challenge for us, especially when we kind of start to scale. So yes, the grass isn't always greener, it's just a different beast. So the next one is find your tribe. Being an entrepreneur with Fiestify, I built a company about 10 years ago as a solopreneur. It does get lonely. So if you can find people that you can spend time with, that you can have catch ups with, that's really important. For me, that was basically leaning on my existing network. I run something called a growth dinners every month. So I get together people from my network, and we have, talk about business, about life, and it's usually a really rewarding dinner and everyone has a really great time. So I think all the people who did come to that, I'm going to keep up with those. They're super awesome. So if you don't have a network, grow it. Join a co-working space like I did 10 years ago with Fiestify. Now I do most of my catch-ups on video, just saves the commute. So make time for that. I did do stuff like regular masterminds with, say, the 100 Days of No Code community, some other entrepreneurs. Shout out to Lauren Worth, who's doing the same thing as me in Europe. We had a catch up every 3 weeks, and it was always like honest, personal, and intellectually stimulating. And we always challenge each other and kept each other accountable. So if you can find people like that, do that. There's a ton of communities, Discord groups that you can join, and you try find people to keep yourself accountable. So jumping onto it, what's next for me? So next up, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing for the next 3 months. I've just started a new company. It's called Word Bounty. It's a micro SaaS company that rewards you to fix the internet. So I hate finding spelling mistakes online. I often tweet out to journalists to say, you've got a spelling mistake or this number's incorrect, and they go and correct it. So I don't see why you can't get paid to do that. I'm kind of validating that with a few editors and media companies at the moment. So you can go to wordbounty.com if you're interested in that. And then after that, if it doesn't work out, I can double down on my existing businesses, which are still generating, nice little bits of revenue. I can put a ton more like fuel on the fire of one of them and try grow that out. Otherwise, I can take on more consulting with Opsize. I've got a few consistent clients that I meet with. So if you are interested in operations or chatting to me, do reach out. And then other than that, if none of that works out, I can just have what I like to think of as interesting conversations with interesting people. So meeting people on, working on new tech, new startups, and the VCs I know, trying to find a new problem, a new team to join, create my own team, and then go from there. So that's it. Bit longer than I thought, under 20 minutes, but I did try power through. I'm Kev Jockelson. If you're interested in reaching out, contact me on Twitter at Kev Jockelson. You can see my website, kevjockelson.com, and contact me there. And I do have a personal newsletter that you can go to there. So thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you following me on the journey. Please reach out if I can double down on any of this information, any of the lessons. If something stood out that you want me to kind of write more about, please let me know. Cool. I'll keep in touch.